I just wanted to pop on, and there was a big response to the tweet yesterday about something that just popped in my head watching that football game yesterday afternoon. So if you're not up to date, the NFL played a game yesterday, and that game was extended, I think, by 5 days from what it was originally scheduled to play. So I watched the game. I had several players playing in the game that we work with. And one of my immediate thoughts was looking at their movement and noticing that the guys really weren't ready to play for the most part. Not every single person, of course, but most of them weren't ready to play. And there's a lot of disadvantages with this COVID situation, no question. But when you really just look at how they were moving, especially the first quarter and the third quarter, it was pretty obvious of some of the errors in preparation that I know because of some conversations that I had, but also that you could plainly see is that they were really sluggish and not ready to play. And that doesn't mean they weren't working hard. Okay, this COVID situation has them. They thought they were going to play, I think, last Thursday, and then it got pushed to Sunday, and then Tuesday. So you're talking Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. That's 5 days extended, 6 if you count the game day. And they played early afternoon. Here's what, in theory, could have happened. They get extended. They're isolated to their house. They can't come to the facility. So in this situation, they're not practicing. So obviously, timing factors, synchronization, communication issues are a concern. But just because you're at your house doesn't mean you can't work out. Now, I think that they were working out. I think they were doing some of the things that was often done when COVID was going on in the spring too, which is a lot of body weight workouts and cardio equipment and things like that. So, and I know that they did get together, these teams did get together and do conditioning workouts. So let me explain a couple things just quickly. One, in the days leading up to the game, there's a concept that I really want to communicate called ramp. Okay, your body is always from a training adaptation standpoint, it's going up ramps or falling off of ramps. And if you're really good, you're going to go up a ramp and you're going to launch. Okay? Let me say that again. Your body is always going up and down ramps. Now, ramps are going to go up, okay? And when you get to a point, you're either launching off that ramp into a level that you couldn't see a straight line. You're going to shoot off that ramp, or you're going to fall right off of it. Okay? Then there's also ramps that are going back down, connecting ramps that are going back down, then coming back up. When you do conditioning that is targeted at submaximal speed for long bouts of time or even intervals, then you're ramping the body down when it comes to getting ready for a performance or a competition. So you're going back down. You do not want that going into a game. When you're in a game, you're going to move at higher velocities than you have at practice. It's because it's primal, it's hormonal, it's a byproduct of the environment, it's what these guys are made to do, it's what they've done their whole life. You can't walk into that even not having touched that in the last 3 to 5 days. Most people can't come within 2 days of not moving full speed and be great right off the jump. So you've got to protect against that. And what I saw is a lot of guys that have been trying to stay in shape for an extended 5 days, and when they were out there, they looked like baby deer running around. The faster so you go into a game and you haven't moved full speed, truly full speed in almost a week, it's going to take you a quarter to even have a high level of coordination at semi-maximal speed to be able to hit the skill level that you've had previously. You've got to make sure that you expose yourself even a small amount So if these guys would have just done some full speed movements, and I'm sure some of them did. Okay, I'm sure some of them did. They're high level professionals in both organizations. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about some individuals that just look like they hadn't been exposed to high velocity movement in a long time. And when I say a long time, over 3 days. Okay, from a strength residual standpoint, there's charts where you can look at max strength, how long it lasts, aerobic capacity, how long it lasts, 30 days plus minus. You're looking at, max velocity movement, max speed, however you want to term it. The charts show it's between 2 and 7 days that you can maintain that. 7 days would be for someone that is genetically wired for it and has the body of an Olympic sprinter. Most of these athletes, even the best and the fastest football players, they're going to lose levels of coordination. They're going to lose max speed capabilities from a certain percentage standpoint within 2 to 3 days. That doesn't mean you need to do a full track and field workout or have a strength conditioning session that's an hour dedicated to speed. You just have to they have to flash movement that is faster than they were going to project in the game any way you can. I don't care if it's a 5-yard sprint. I don't care if it's a throw, a strike, a kick. You've got to expose their body neurologically to maximal speed. That's going to keep their electrical system sharp, the central nervous system primed and ready to go. Because the central nervous system goes up ramps and it either launches or it crashes. And then it goes back down ramps. So that's why I say right after the game, for the next 48 hours is the time to work on those things that you think may be important. General strength, aerobic capacity. When you talk about energy systems development, there's a lot of benefit in blending those different things. But later in the week, the closer you get to competition, the more you want the exposures to be more like the competition itself. The volume should go down. The intensity and speed should go up as the week goes on. And that is so your body goes up a ramp, and your hope is that in the competition, in the game, you are launched into some performance realm that you haven't been in before. That's the goal. And as coaches, on the performance end, we can't act like that's not part of our job, because it is. And the competition, exactly, the competition is the highest level of stimulus for an athlete, especially if they're a great one. So you've got to make sure that you find ways to trick the system to moving faster. So I've posted about the towel drill that I'll do with pitchers and throwers. And yeah, the towel drill in itself isolated is kind of a joke. Okay, I get that. But from my standpoint, why am I doing that on a Friday with an NFL quarterback that plays on Sunday? Because I want to create arm action that's faster than any arm action he's going to produce in a game. Now, if I do that, he's going to be wired to have the fastest release he can possibly generate in the game. Same for a pitcher. It doesn't matter what sport you are. I don't care what sport you are, what level. This is all the same. You find a way. You do minimal. One of my favorite sayings that I love to preach to our athletes is snipers only get one shot. So in our training, I'm not scared in season to do one set. I'll explain it. No redos. One set. This is because I believe in the central nervous system as a major factor in performance, and I know that you do not need a lot of volume and exposure to that. Now, traditional strength training and a lot of strength-first people are going to argue that it takes this amount of time for the tissues to recover and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. This is two different languages, okay? I understand all that. I'm not going to get into a discussion with all that. I'd love to play. If I had full control of a team, I'd love to play against somebody with those philosophies. I would love it. So what I would say is, the basic takeaway from the post that I made is that you need to, right after the game, you need to take care of the things that are the furthest away from the game. So when the game is over, you've got about 48 hours to do as much as you feel is necessary. And I'm saying if you got a whole week to prepare, you need to do as much as you feel is necessary to get the body back to ground zero. And that's going to be doing a lot of things that are slow, controlled, full range of motion, focused on strength, and look nothing like the game you're preparing them for. When you get inside of 3 days, you better talk less, give less instruction, do faster things, and things that look a lot more like what they're about to do. There's a reason why Olympic sprinters do full speed starts the night before a meet, or sometimes the morning before the evening. You know, with a lot of the general principle of thought right now, most of us would have them resting until the meet, or resting until this. That's not how it works. We work in ramps. We work up the ramp, we launch off of it, we land on the decel, and we go down it. Some of us don't understand this very well, so we go up this ramp, and then we crash straight down. And then what happens is in the first quarter, we've got to climb back up the opposite side ramp, and then we actually go into a depression and go down the ramp in the competition. This happens a lot, and it happens on the professional level all the way down to the high school level. And this is something that we can recognize, and we can change and take control of this. So I know that for some of you, you think this is crazy. I've seen evidence of this this working on a high level. I've seen evidence of this not working, more importantly, when people execute it in the wrong way. And when you see some of these guys that had their free time outside of their team, they went and resorted to, conditioning. I love Peloton, but you're not going to get on there and stay in shape on your Peloton and come out in the first quarter firing accurate bullets, metaphorically, all right? Ain't going to happen. You look at some of those athletes out there, some of the best in the world. How awkward did they look breaking into full speed the other night? How awkward did it look when guys were trying to change direction or make plays or find the ball in space? A lot of that has to do with not being able to practice, but a lot of it has to do with the body not being primed up and ready to go. You got a former Olympic level hurdler that was having a hard time finding his feet sprinting down the football field. And this is a big time athlete. So when you do that, even within a week, if you prepare the wrong way inside of a week, you can lose coordination. The higher speed you move, I don't care if you're an offensive lineman or what, the higher speed you move, the more your coordination can go down if you haven't been exposed to it enough. Okay? Soft tissue injury risk go up. Your risk for cramps go up. Why? Because cramps are neurological. It's not hydration. Hydration is widely misunderstood as part of what cramps come from. It's mainly neurological. So if you have those neurological exposures, your chances of having cramps a lot lower. Okay, yes, there has been things proven with mustard, and there's been things proven with pickle juice and mustard combined, and those things are phenomenal. So yes, you can use that, and that is a hack, but that's not a solution. And I encourage those things. It's a hack, not a solution. How do I determine central nervous system fatigue through the week? That's a good question. I mean, this thing is complicated, Rob, because sport coaches need to be the priority and the loudest voice during the season. So you've got to basically, we have to use our eyes. Yes, we could do vertical jump on the jump mat every day. I've seen that done. For me, it's more now. I don't have 61 guys to monitor, but I feel like it's easy for me at this point. It's easier for me to use my eyes in warm-ups and really watch their body language and things like that. I think a whoop band and O-ring, those are incredible tools to at least get some type of indication of where they're at. Again, sometimes just because they have a depressed central nervous system doesn't mean you don't need to work. It just means you need to monitor, as I'm sure you know. So again, for me, if it's in the off season, I'll use power metrics as a good indication of what they're going to be capable of that day and then the days leading up to, and how I need to account for it the rest of the week. So we'll use pneumatic resistance measures and look at wattage. We do some type of evaluation every single day. to kind of track it. The one day we wouldn't is if we had planned regeneration work. We wouldn't track it because we want to give them a break from that stimulus. During the season, I feel like it's a little more complicated. Every single rep is volume, so you really don't even want to expose them to those reps if you don't have to. So it gets a little more complicated during the season, I feel like. Really, really good question. So for me, just like if you aren't familiar, the tweets that I put out last night, I put out a thread, and one of the things that I said is I feel like in a game week, in the beginning of the week, you want high volume, and you want focus on getting the body back to ground zero. Okay, as the week goes on, you go to low volume. Also, at the beginning of the week, very slow speeds from a strength conditioning implementation standpoint. And towards the end of the week, you go to very high speeds. Now, the volume's got to offset. So when you go to low speeds, your volume's high. Okay, sorry. Low speed, volume high. Okay, as the week goes on, high speed, volume low. They got to be going in opposite directions. Okay. In addition, you want very broad and general full body movements. Not necessarily full body movements, sorry. Full range of motion movements. Focus on strength. At the beginning of the week, at the end of the week, it can be very acute. It can be a lot faster. It can be very brief. My vision for an in-season workout say you're playing on Sunday, a Friday workout might be 30 minutes. Then most of that's rest. Okay. I even like day before. I like priming and potentiation on game day. If I'm honest with you, I love velocity-based training. Yes. But that is just such a blanket term. I'm not a West Side barbell guy. I do velocity-based training in a very literal sense. So if you look at some of the stuff I put on social media, it's probably in that vein, but probably a little more literal than the whole dynamic effort to max effort and all these terms that other people call them different things, and it's the same thing. I like to take it out of the realm of just the barbell, and put it more in the context of the player and their position, or even the sport. And you can do this with any sport, really. Really good question. And yeah, I mean, I think to finish this off, the general thought process is this: you become what you do, and it doesn't take that long. Especially when these guys are at the level that they're at in the season, they become what they do in the matter of 48 hours. So there's a lot of choices that add up to the performance you see on the field. And you very rarely can you afford to have a first quarter where you're trying to get the feel for your body. And again, if you're set up that way, what's going to happen is you're going to peak in the second quarter from a movement standpoint. And then you're going to go into halftime, and your body's going to think it can catch its breath. And you're going to have to do that again. But if you come into this game correctly, tapped in from a central nervous system standpoint, and I do this with baseball players, Major League Baseball players in different positions, and football players in the NFL. If you go into it the right way, you're going to stay ramped up. Your body's going to be jacked up. In the beginning of the game, it's going to stay there. That's the whole point. Man, those regeneration days, I'll be honest, that's a combination. I didn't go take a course and, that's how I do regeneration. That's a conglomerate of 20 years of learning from some incredible people and kind of piecing things together and using things that I feel is important for the timing and for certain body types. And there's no shortcut to that. I feel like it's the most complicated thing that we can do in our profession is understand regeneration. So I would encourage you to get out there and study, make relationships, and never turn down an opportunity to invest in learning about different ways to move the body that are going to regenerate tissue, which means renew tissue. Okay, so what do you think is the most efficient way to tune up a mismatched sequence? I saw Greg Rose one time. I was talking with him, and he put a guy on a rolling chair and said, okay, make the chair rotate 360 only using your right foot. only using your left foot, and this was a right-handed batter. And I thought that was an incredible way to teach them how to use the body in kind of a spiral motion to generate power. I think there's a lot of ways to cue them up. Cues and tune-ups and whatever you want to call them, it's a lot like clothes. You try them on, you see how they fit. And just because it's your size doesn't mean it works for you. So that's how I would treat that. Thursday through Saturday sessions, that's a good question. I feel like in season 3 times a week is sufficient. I prioritize range of motion and maximal strength on the first workout. Second workout's mixing some isometrics. You could do a little more coordinated movements. And then the third workout's got to be all speed, sub 40% loads, 60% max, single reps, things like that. Ballistic or dynamic stretching, depends on the athlete, man. I think you try it. That's what the off-season's for. I look at the off-season different probably than most people in this profession. I think it's a good way to get an education on what's going to work in the season. So I know you think this is probably crazy, but I think that periodization is widely overrated. And I think you got to use the off-season as an educational process for what's going to work in the season. A lot of us act like that our job's done. Like, our job's done when the season starts. But that's really the greatest opportunity to have an effect. Aubrey, what's good, man? You're a legend. I love you and I miss you, man. I hope you're well. I know you're killing it in real estate. I'm very proud of you. Ballistic or dynamic stretching on game day, do the least, man. Do the least. On game day, most great athletes are going to get a cocktail of hormones and adrenaline, and their body's going to get hot enough when the national anthem's playing. I mean, why do I believe that? Because I've seen some of the worst warm-ups in the history of sport on the professional level before a game, and it doesn't matter a lot of times. Now, am I going to say that that's what I prefer? No, absolutely not. I would do ballistic and dynamic exposures on game day if I could. There's not always the logistics for that. But, most of these guys are out on the field 2 hours before the game. There's no way they're not warm. It's if their body's firing correctly, which you should take care of that in the sequence of the week. So I don't want to be lazy or act flippant about this, but really that should be taken care of before game day, is making sure everything's firing right and the tissues are right. Using towels to increase arm speed. Remember, go back and look at my video about that on Instagram TV or whatever, IGTV. It's just a drill, man. Drills are like ingredients. It doesn't mean you can cook. It's just one thing, and it doesn't make arm speed work. It's just a way for me to expose the arm to high-speed movement. Okay, so just remember that. For hitters, I use a light bat. Let's keep it simple, man. I use something really light. That's it. Oh, man. When you ask me stuff like, the defensive end for Pittsburgh that tore his ACL, do I think it was from not ramping up? Man, that's a really hard question to answer. Every single injury that's ever happened is a combination and summation of millions of life choices to that point, not just the others. So when someone tears an ACL, gosh, I really can't say that it's like some strength coach or PT's fault or that they didn't warm up well. It's way more complicated than that. So, could that have played a factor in his coordination levels in that particular time or his body's ability to manipulate itself in that moment? It's possible. But most of the time when there's an ACL, that ACL was coming like a freight train, and it was going to happen one way or another. Now, sometimes there's contact injuries. I saw a few times last week, some guys got significant impact in ways that should have blown out their knees, and they didn't. I've seen guys blow out their knees when it shouldn't. I've been on all sides of that. It is more complicated than what they did to ramp up their body that week. However, assuredly that can play a role. Thanks, Coach. 8-point throwing. So we love to just work on what I call priming the system. Sometimes I'll call it cleaning the gun. So having him step at 8 different angles and make throws. Why do I do that? Because that's how he likes to play the game. So it makes sense to just keep his system sharp to where the first time he's doing that week is not inside the game. So 8 different – Patrick certainly moves more than 8 different ways, but that's at least a good start. So that's why we do it. I mean, I try to keep things simple. I like to be creative. I like to think about concepts and not be structured into, these rigid philosophies to adopt, if that makes sense. These are prescription glasses. Thank you for bringing that up, Josh. I guarantee you're the second oldest person on this beside me, so I know your time's coming. But if you look, these are very thick. So I had LASIK in the 90s. That's how old I am. And at this point, my vision out, if you look past my hand, my vision's pretty poor. And the glasses that I had weren't great. And I had these Oakleys, and I love them to wear when I'm coaching outside. But I need to see better. So the guy just suggested, he said, since you're always, wearing sleepwear, activewear, whatever you call this, you could get away with making these transitions. So these go light when I'm not in the sun, and when I'm in the sun, they're sunglasses and they're prescriptions. So put that in your pipe, son. Yeah, I know, Stefan, I know you know that. I'm just saying, I wanted to clarify because people on these things can kind of take things and run with it. The ramp-up concept, there's no doubt that can play a role. I just don't have any point of reference on where that athlete was at. I know he's a phenomenal player. Prayers for him on his recovery. But I really don't know where his body was at enough to answer that question. He's not a client of mine. I know Pittsburgh and Baltimore both do a great job with their sports medicine, strength conditioning, and everything else. So I'm not blaming anybody with that. I'm just talking about concepts. Thank you. Yeah, he is. Frontal plane in the weight room. That is tough. I think frontal plane is more movement. You're not going to be able to put a lot of barbell action with frontal plane. The best frontal plane exposure in a traditional weight room is going to be single arm or single leg. So unilateral is pretty much frontal plane recruitment. But you could argue that some of that's transverse plane. Now we're getting into real versus relative rotation and some very complicated physics type discussions. But as far as frontal plane is concerned, I like movement as a solution for frontal plane. Very good question. And excellent question. What are a couple drills to help increase arm strength as a QB? There's a bunch. Probably my favorite resource for just to get access to a ton of drills is nationalpitching.com. That is Tom House's company. He has a ton of things. Now, I'm not saying that I do all those things. I just think that's the best place to find a concentration of drills and someone I really like. And the greatest thing about their drills is you don't need any equipment. So it's a win-win. Go check that resource out and tell Tom I sent you. How do you structure your speed day? That depends. We've got a lot of different speed days that we do in different sports, different types of implementations. So it's always going to be like this, though. We're going to prime the body. So we call it a fuse. Prime the body. Prime the joints. Dynamic movement. Potentiation. Move fast. The minute we can't move fast, that workout's over. Period. No emotional attachment. So I got to run. I hope that helped explain some of the concepts behind the tweet. Please don't make fun of my glasses too much. Really, I can barely legally drive, I'll be honest with you. That's what they told me. Here we are. All right. All love. Have a great week.